After completing this module, we shall be able to learn how participants in financial markets form expectations. We would also analyze the reasons that might cause expectations in financial markets to change over time. We would also like to identify the reasons behind movements in stock prices. We would also identify and evaluate in this module the impact of unexpected expansion in consumption on stock prices. We would also analyze the impact of monetary and fiscal policies on stock prices. We would identify the bubbles in stock market and try to understand efficient market hypothesis which explains the stock market behavior. Let us now introduce the subject. In this we are saying that expectations basically play a central role in money, banking and financial markets. Hence, in this module we look at methods people use to form their expectations. We would basically look at three ways to form expectations: the Markov expectations, adaptive expectations and rational expectations hypothesis. We focus on the formation of inflationary expectations to compare and contrast expectation formation under each theory. However, similar methods may be used to form expectations about the variables as well. Firms basically raise funds in two ways, either by issuing debt instruments like bonds or by issuing equity instruments like stocks. Bond holders gets a fixed payment independent of the firm's performance, while shareholders receive dividends that are dependent on firm's performance. As a result, the firm's performance plays a crucial role in determining the stock prices of that firm. In this module, we will also look at the role of expectations in a stock market and how stock prices respond to changes in economic environment and macro policy. Let us start with the theories of expectations formation. First theory which we are going to discuss here is Markov expectation. The Markov expectations hypothesis basically asserts that economic agents expect the future to be like the most recent past. Hence, individuals, they expect tomorrow to be exactly like today. Hence, under Markov expectations, the expected value of y based on information available at time t is simply yt. This can be written as et as a function of yt plus 1 equal to yt, and we write it as et in the bracket yt plus 1 equal to yt. Thus, we are saying that investor simply uses the most recent known value of y to forecast future values of y. A shortcoming of Markov expectations is that they do not take into account available information that might change the future environment. For example, if the inflation rate is rising, according to Markov expectation theory, investors will expect the inflation rate to remain at its previous level. But each year they will therefore underestimate the inflation rate. Thus, investor simply uses the most recent known value of y to forecast future values of y. Section 3.2 Adaptive expectations. Adaptive expectations allow previous forecast errors to affect future expectations as individuals slowly learn from past mistakes. Hence, expectations evolve over time in the light of past experience. Like Markov expectations, adaptive expectations are based on past experience. However, adaptive expectations adjust current expectations based on information about errors in previous forecasts. Symbolically, The current adaptive expectation about y in period t, denoted as yt power e or yet, given what is known in period t minus 1, is given by et yt plus 1 equal to et minus 1 yt plus theta yt minus et minus 1 yt, where theta is 0 and 1. We can write down this theta less than or equal to 1 but greater than or equal to 0. This formula basically states that the current expectation of y et yt plus 1 equals last period's expectation, which is et minus 1 yt, plus an adjustment term that adjusts this period's expectation in light of past errors, noted as theta into yt minus et minus 1 yt, where expression in parenthesis is last period's expectation error, and theta taking value between 0 and 1 is called the coefficient of expectation. Hence, you can see that in each period, economic agents basically adjust their expectations by some fraction of the error in expectations of the previous period. The error that is realized in period t is given by epsilon t equal to yt minus et minus 1 yt. Thus, agents revise their previous expectations in each period in proportion to the difference between actual observation and what was previously expected. The error adjustment mechanism can be applied to all previous periods so that the current expectations equal et yt plus 1 equal to theta yt plus 1 minus theta et minus 1 yt. Substituting the value, we get et minus 1 yt equal to theta yt minus 1 plus 1 minus theta into et minus 2 yt minus 1. Similarly, if you keep on repeating this process for different time periods, taking different values of t, we can write down et yt plus 1 equal to theta yt plus theta into 1 minus theta yt minus 1 plus theta into 1 minus theta whole square into yt minus 2, so on. And this can continue as long as we have this time iteration. The generalized form of this equation can be rewritten as et yt plus 1 is equal to theta sigma 1 minus theta raised to power k into yt minus k, where k takes the value from 0 to t. Thus, we can say that adaptive expectations make current period's forecasts a weighted average of past observations. The coefficient of expectations theta determines the responsiveness to past errors. If theta is 1, then we can see that et yt plus 1 is equal to yt. Hence, we can say that Markov expectations is a special case of adaptive expectations when theta is equal to 1. But a serious problem with adaptive expectation is that the expected future value depends on past values and nothing else. But rational economic agents typically use all available information and not past values only in making forecasts. This has led to the idea of rational expectations, which is the most sophisticated of the three methods of forming expectations. So let us now learn about rational expectations. According to rational expectations hypothesis, people use all knowledgeable information, including variables that economic theory suggests are relevant for making predictions. So rational expectations do not imply that forecasts are always right. It only implies that there is no systematic error in forecasts. Any deviation from what is forecasted is purely random and as is just as likely to be positive as negative, which means it can take positive value or it can take also negative values. For example, in forming a rational expectation about bond prices, an investor would list all the determinants of demand and supply of bonds. In order to form an expectation of the equilibrium bond price, all available information about the determinants of demand and supply and should be used. Sometimes rational expectations is criticized based on the argument that economists themselves do not always agree on the relevant economic theory. So how can non-economists be expected to both know the relevant economic theory and gather and process the needed information which is available to us? Let us now try to understand the movements in stock prices. So what are stock prices and how the movement takes place? A stock promises a sequence of dividends in future. Hence, stock price must equal the present value of future expected dividends. So let's PT be the price of the stock. Let DT denote the dividend this year and D power E t plus 1 the expected dividend next year. Similarly, dt2 plus 2 d t plus 2e the expected dividend 2 years from now, and so on. The price of the stock in the current period is then given by pt equal to dt plus dt plus 1e upon 1 plus I 1 t plus dt plus 2e upon 1 plus I 2t into 1 plus I 2te, and so on. This is our equation 1. So where I1t is current 1 year interest rate and I2te is next year's expected 1 year interest rate. Equation 1 therefore gives the stock price as the present value of expected dividends. This is defined as fundamental value of the stock. You must have noticed that equation 1 has two important implications. First is the higher expected future dividends lead to a higher stock price. Second is higher current and expected future 1 year interest rates lead to a lower stock price. So stock prices are very volatile and often said to be unpredictable. It is also recognized that expectation of a high stock price next year leads to a high stock price today, as people start demanding more of stocks in comparison to other assets in expectation of higher future stock price. Section 4.2. Let us now try to understand the relationship between monetary policy and stock market. Suppose the economy is in a recession and the central bank adopts an expansionary monetary policy. Now this leads to the shift of the LM curve downwards, which means to the right. The new equilibrium output moves from E to E prime. How will the stock market react? The answer depends on what participants in the stock market had expected about the stance of monetary policy. If stock market participants had fully anticipated the expansionary monetary policy, then the stock market will not react. Neither its expectations of future interest rates nor its expectations of future dividends are affected by a move it had already expected. Thus, nothing in equation 1 changes and stock prices they remain the same. Suppose instead that the central bank's move is partly unexpected. In that case, stock prices or stock price of a particular firm's share equity will increase. Due to expansionary monetary policy, interest rates would fall and output rises, leading to higher dividends, which is also shown in our figure 1. So both lower interest rates and higher dividends, both current and expected, leads to an increase in stock prices as equation 1 tells us. So in this section 4.3, let us try to understand the relationship between consumer spending and stock market. We can see that due to autonomous increase in consumption spending caused possibly by a cut in personal income tax or a boost in consumer confidence about the economy's future, shifting the IS curve to the right, output increases from E to E prime in our figure 2. Hence, we might be tempted to conclude that stock prices will go up as higher output means higher profits and higher dividends. But this answer is incomplete. What happens to the stock market depends on the slope of the LM curve and central bank's behavior, which controls the money supply. The movement along the LM curve also implies an increase in interest rates. Higher interest rates lead to lower stock prices. The final impact on stock prices depends on which of the two effects, which is higher profits or output or higher interest rates, dominate. You can see this clearly from our figure 2, which is showing the impact of increase in consumer spending, and our IS curve has shifted to the right. In this, you can find that the final impact depends on the slope of the LM curve. So in case of flat LM curve, as shown in figure 3, rise in interest rate is low and rise in output is high, leading to rise in stock prices. Whereas in case of steep LM curve, rise in interest rate is high and that in output is low, and therefore a decrease in stock prices is likely to result. So in this figure 3, you can see very well we have different LM curves cutting the same IS curve in the original equilibrium position at E0. Let us now look at the monetary policy response in 4.3.1. The above discussion ignores the effect of increase in consumer spending on central authorities' behavior. The effect is something that most financial investors care about. After an unexpected surge in economic activity, what would be the response of central authority, which is the central bank of a country? Central bank may respond in 3 different ways. The first could be the accommodative monetary policy. If central bank increase the money supply to meet the higher money demand due to upsurge in economic activity, shifting the LM curve downwards from LM to LM prime in figure 4, stock prices will increase as output is expected to be higher and interest rates are not expected to rise, which is clearly shown in this figure 4. If we look at the unchanged monetary policy, which could be the second response of the monetary authorities, in this situation, LM curve will remain unchanged and impact on its stock prices is ambiguous as discussed above. Profits will be higher, but so will interest rates. In the third scenario, where the central bank adopts contractionary monetary policy, you may find that if the economy is already close to the natural level of output, then the response will be different. In this case, a further increase in output will lead to increase in inflation. Now, due to contractionary monetary policy, LM curve shifts backwards to the left and output does not change as shown in figure 5. As a result, interest rate is expected to go up with no change in expected output and profits. Hence, you will find stock prices will go down in such a scenario. So, I am sure you can all see this diagram very clearly and try to understand the point which we are trying to make, where the output remains same at Y0, but interest rate increases from I0 to I1. Let us now look at the efficient markets hypothesis, which tries to explain stock markets in our section 5. The efficient markets hypothesis basically states that the current price of an asset, such as share of a stock, reflects all available information about the value of the asset. More generally, according to the efficient markets hypothesis, the risk-adjusted expected return on all investments will be equal. That is, the return one expects to earn on a stock exactly equals to the return that could be earned on any other asset with similar risk characteristics. This is because if one asset earns a higher risk-adjusted expected rate of return than another asset, investors will quickly attempt to purchase that asset, driving up its price and thus lowering its expected return. Hence, all information that is relevant for forecasting the future returns on the stock are already reflected in its price. We have different versions of this. Let's look at the versions of efficient markets hypothesis. The idea of efficient markets is that asset prices tends to change very quickly in response to new information. There are three versions of efficient market hypothesis: the weak form, the semi-strong form, and the strong form. As their names imply, these three statements of market efficiency make increasingly strong assumptions about asset market pricing. Let's look at, first of all, the weak form market efficiency in section 5.1.1. According to weak form market efficiency, the best predictor of next period's asset price is this period's price, which is the price of asset in the current period. Hence, historical data on asset price cannot improve on this prediction. However, there exists evidence of minor departures from weak form of market efficiency in a stock market. For example, there may exist day of the week effects if stock prices tend to rise on some day of the week, say Monday, or fall on some day of the week, say Friday. These are known as weekday effects. Now, let us discuss semi-strong form of market efficiency, which is our second type. It asserts that no publicly available information will help in predicting future asset prices better than the current value of the asset. This includes not only historical data of the asset in question, but also publicly available information on interest rates, tax rates, profits, business opportunities, other asset prices, etc. Thus, any useful publicly available information will be quickly reflected in the market prices. Thus, we are saying the current price is the best predictor of future prices. Now, move on to the third form of market efficiency, known as strong form market efficiency. This form of market efficiency makes a very strong statement that no current information, either publicly available or not, any inside information included, can better predict the asset price than using the most recently known value of an asset price. So, although there is evidence that the stock market may not meet the strict conditions of strong form of market efficiency, the weak and semi-strong forms of market efficiency, in contrast, are largely consistent with the observations in financial markets. So, what we have said is that weak and semi-strong are more prevalent as compared to the strong form of market efficiency. What are these bubbles in a stock market? Let us try to understand them now. Sometimes stock price changes are so enormous that these movements do not seem to be explained by any news about future dividends and interest rates. Hence, many economists argue that stock prices are not always equal to their fundamental value defined in equation 1. Sometimes stocks are underpriced and sometimes overpriced, eventually ending with a crash. Such mispricing can occur even when investors are rational. For example, investors may expect that they will be able to sell the stock that has zero fundamental value at a higher price in future, and the stock price may increase just because investors expect them to. Often financial investors become excessively optimistic by the performance of past short span of time. Hence, they may not behave in a rational way and extrapolate from past returns to predict future returns, and due to which there is an increase in demand for stock and stock becomes high priced for no reason other than its price had increased in the past and so is expected to rise in the near future. Hence, price of a stock keeps on rising, fueled by expectations of further rise and deviating more and more from its fundamental value. The two most famous bubbles of the 20th century, the bubble in American stocks in the 1920s just before the Great Depression and the dot-com bubble of the late 90s, were based on speculative activity surrounding the development of new technologies. The 1920s saw the widespread introduction of an amazing range of technological innovations, including radio, automobiles, aviation, and the deployment of electrical power grids. The 1990s was the decade when internet and e-commerce technologies emerged. Stock market bubbles, I am sure you would realize, frequently produce hot markets in initial public offerings, since investment bankers and their clients see opportunities to float new stock issues at inflated prices. These hot IPO markets misallocate investment funds to areas dictated by speculative trends rather than to enterprises generating long-standing economic value. Typically, when there is an overabundance of IPOs in a bubble market, you will find a large portion of the IPO companies fails completely, never achieve what is promised to be investors or what is promised to the investors, and can even be vehicles for fraud in many cases. So let us, students, summarize what we have learned in this module. We looked at Markov expectations, adaptive expectations, and rational expectations approach of forming expectations, and noted the pros and cons of each. Properly formed rational expectations contain no systematic errors, but they usually require more information than Markov or adaptive expectations do. We have also learned that the fundamental value of a stock is the present value of expected future real dividends discounted using current and future expected 1-year interest rates. We have also tried to learn that an increase in current and expected 1-year interest rates and similarly a decrease in expected dividends leads to a decrease in their fundamental value. You have also learned that output and stock prices may change in same direction or different direction depending on what the market had expected, what is the source of the stock, and what the market expects the central bank to react to output change. We have also learned that the efficient market hypothesis states that the current price of an asset, such as a share of a stock, reflects all available information about the value of the asset. We have also learned that stock prices are subject to bubbles causing a stock price and it differs from its fundamental value. Blanchard in 2010 describes bubbles as episodes where financial investors buy a stock for a price higher than its fundamental value, anticipating reselling it at an even higher price.